In a small, quiet neighborhood, life was calm and peaceful. The streets were lined with tall trees that gave cool shade in the afternoon. Most houses had green lawns and colorful flowers. People knew each other, and children played outside every day after school. It was the kind of place where neighbors waved hello and smiled when they met. Marcus lived in one of those houses. He was 16 years old and a bright, kind boy. His skin was dark, and his smile was wide and warm. Marcus loved riding his bike. Every day after school, he would hop on his old blue bike and ride around the neighborhood. He knew all the paths, all the turns, and every friendly dog that barked hello. His mother, Linda, often watched him from the front porch as he rode. She was proud of Marcus. He worked hard at school, helped around the house, and was always polite to everyone. But Linda also worried sometimes. Not because Marcus was doing anything wrong, but because the world was not always kind to boys like him. One morning, Marcus woke up early. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with soft pink and orange colors. It was Saturday, a day without school, and Marcus was excited. He wanted to ride his bike to the neighborhood park and maybe meet some friends. "Mom, can I go to the park?" Marcus asked, his eyes bright. Linda smiled. "Of course, just be careful, okay? And stay where I can see you." "I will," Marcus said, putting on his helmet. The neighborhood was peaceful that morning. Birds sang from the trees, and a soft breeze moved the leaves. Marcus felt free as he pedaled down the street, the wind on his face. As he passed the clubhouse, he waved to Mr. Thomas, an elderly man who often sat on the bench reading the newspaper. "Good morning, Marcus," Mr. Thomas said kindly. "Good morning, sir," Marcus replied, smiling. Marcus loved the park. It was a green space with swings, slides, and a small basketball court. Kids from all over the neighborhood came there to play. Marcus often met his friends here, and today, he hoped to see some of them. When Marcus arrived at the park, he saw a few kids playing basketball. He parked his bike near the fence and joined in. The game was fun, and Marcus laughed a lot. For a while, he forgot about everything else. But then, something strange happened. Two men walked toward Marcus. They were wearing dark uniforms that looked like security guards. Their shirts had badges, but Marcus had never seen them before. One of the men was tall and had a serious face. The other was shorter, with a sharp voice. "Hey, you there," the tall man said, pointing at Marcus. "You're not allowed to be here." Marcus blinked in surprise. "What? Why? This is a public park." The shorter man stepped closer. "This is private property, and you don't belong here." Marcus felt his heart start to beat faster. He looked around. The other kids stopped playing and watched quietly. Marcus didn't understand. He had been coming to the park for years. No one had ever told him to leave before. "I'm just playing basketball," Marcus said calmly. "I live in this neighborhood." The men didn't seem to listen. The tall man folded his arms. "You need to leave right now." Marcus's chest tightened. He wanted to explain more, but the men's harsh voices made him feel small and scared. He looked back at the playground, hoping someone would help him. Suddenly, a woman walking her dog came closer. She watched the scene with a worried expression. "What's going on here?" she asked. "These boys don't belong here," the tall man said quickly. "We're with the HOA security." The woman frowned. I'm part of the HOA. I don't know any security officers like you. The men said nothing and turned back to Marcus. Marcus's mind raced. He wished someone would stop this. He wished he could disappear. His mother's words came to his mind, "Be careful, son. Not everyone will see you the way you see yourself." He didn't understand exactly what she meant until that moment. The other kids around the park looked away. No one said a word. Marcus felt alone, even with so many people nearby. The tall man stepped closer again. "You need to leave. Now." Marcus felt a tear roll down his cheek. Not because he had done something wrong, but because he felt judged. Judged for being who he was. He looked up and took a deep breath. "I'm going home," he said quietly. As Marcus turned and walked away, he heard whispers and quiet conversations. Some neighbors watched from behind curtains, others from their front doors. No one stopped the men or asked questions. Marcus's hands shook as he climbed back on his bike. He didn't want to cry, but the fear and sadness were heavy in his chest. When he finally reached home, Linda was waiting on the porch. Her eyes were full of concern the moment she saw his face. "Marcus. What happened?" she asked gently. Marcus didn't want to speak. His voice felt stuck inside. But finally, he told her everything: the men, their uniforms, the harsh words, and how scared he felt. Linda held him close and wiped his tears. "You did nothing wrong," she said firmly. "We will figure this out together." Marcus felt a small spark of hope in his mother's warm hug. Even if the neighborhood seemed quiet and peaceful on the outside, he knew there were things underneath, things that were hard to face but needed to be. That night, Marcus lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He thought about the men at the park and how they saw him. He thought about his mother's worry and his own fear. But most of all, he thought about his father. David was not like other fathers. He worked far away, often late at night, and talked little about his job. Marcus knew he was a strong man who helped people. David was an FBI agent, someone who fought for justice and truth. Maybe, Marcus thought, just maybe, his father could help make things right. The next morning, Marcus woke up feeling tired but determined. He remembered the strange men from yesterday and how unfairly they treated him. Even though he wanted to forget the whole thing, it stayed in his mind like a cloud. After breakfast, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with his mother, Linda. She had already made a list of questions. "Marcus," she began carefully, "do you know anything about those men? Have you seen them before? Did they say why they wanted you to leave the park?" Marcus shook his head. "No, Mom. They just said they were with the HOA, but I don't think they really are. I have never seen them before." Linda frowned. "That worries me. If they were not real officers, then why did they come to bother you?" Marcus didn't know how to answer. He wished he could understand why someone would act like that. Why would they choose to make him feel like he didn't belong in his own neighborhood? As the day passed, Linda tried to stay calm for Marcus. She knew her son needed support, but she also needed to protect her family. The thought of fake security men roaming the neighborhood was troubling. Later that afternoon, Marcus decided to ride his bike again. He wanted to feel free, like before, and forget the bad moment. The sky was clear, and the sun was warm on his face as he pedaled through the streets. But this time, the neighborhood felt different. Marcus noticed more eyes watching him. Some neighbors stared quietly from their windows. Some crossed the street when they saw him coming. It made Marcus feel small and unsure. He stopped near the mailbox outside his house, taking a deep breath. Just then, his best friend, Sarah, came riding her bike towards him. "Hey, Marcus," Sarah called with a smile. "Are you okay? I heard about what happened." Marcus looked at her and nodded slowly. "I'm fine, I guess. But it's hard when people treat you like you don't belong." Sarah's face grew serious. "That's not fair. You're one of the kindest people I know. Don't let anyone make you feel bad." Marcus smiled at her words. "Thanks, Sarah. It helps to hear that." The two friends rode together toward the park. Marcus wanted to enjoy the day, but a small voice inside him reminded him to be careful. When they reached the park, the swings were empty, and the basketball court was quiet. It was early, so most kids were still at home. Marcus and Sarah found a bench and sat down. Suddenly, a car slowly drove by. Marcus recognized the two men from yesterday. They were still wearing their fake uniforms and badges, but their faces looked even more serious. Marcus's heart began to pound. He felt trapped. Why were they here again? Sarah noticed his fear. "Marcus, what's wrong?" "I don't know," he whispered. "Those men are back. They were the ones who told me to leave." Sarah frowned. "That's not right. You haven't done anything wrong." Marcus nodded. "I wish someone could stop them." Just then, a woman with a clipboard walked by. She was part of the real Hoa board. Sarah called out to her, "Excuse me. Do you know those men? Are they supposed to be here?" The woman stopped and looked carefully at the two men in the car. Her eyes grew wide. "No," she said slowly. "I don't recognize them. They are not on our security team." Marcus felt a small hope growing inside him. If they were not real security officers, maybe he was not alone in this. The woman promised to speak with the Hoa leaders and find out more about the strange men. Marcus and Sarah stayed at the park for a little while longer, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When they returned to the neighborhood, Marcus saw other neighbors whispering behind curtains and doors. Some shook their heads quietly when they saw him. He wondered if they believed the fake officers or if they felt the same doubts he did. At home, Marcus's father, David, returned from work that evening. He was tired but noticed something was wrong the moment he saw Marcus's face. "What's going on, son?" David asked, his voice gentle but serious. Marcus told him everything: the men at the park, their uniforms, their harsh words, and the feeling that he was being watched unfairly. David listened carefully, his eyes narrowing with concern. "That's not right," he said firmly. "No one should make you feel unsafe in your own neighborhood." He hugged Marcus tightly. "I promise you, we will figure this out. You are not alone." That night, David sat with Linda and Marcus at the kitchen table. They talked about what to do next. David explained, "These men might be pretending to be security officers. That's serious. It's called impersonation, and it's against the law." Linda looked worried. "But what if they come back? What if they try to hurt Marcus?" David shook his head. "They won't. I will make sure of that." He reached for his phone and started making calls. Marcus watched his father with new respect. David was calm, strong, and ready to protect his family. For the first time, Marcus felt a little less afraid. The next day, David went to the Hoa office and spoke with the leaders. He showed them pictures of the fake men from the neighborhood security cameras. The Hoa promised to help find out who they were and to keep the neighborhood safe. Marcus's school day was still hard. Some classmates whispered about the incident, but others stood by his side. Sarah was one of the few who helped him feel brave. At home, Marcus felt safer knowing his father was fighting for justice. He wanted to believe the neighborhood would soon be peaceful again. But deep inside, Marcus knew this was only the beginning. Sometimes, standing up for what is right meant facing hard moments. And Marcus was ready. After the meeting with the Hoa leaders, things didn't change as quickly as Marcus had hoped. The fake security men were still seen around the neighborhood, and whispers of their strange behavior continued. Marcus felt the tension growing every day. He noticed that some neighbors avoided him, while others gave him quick, nervous glances. It made him feel as if he was invisible or, worse, a problem. At school, the situation was no better. Some classmates talked about what happened at the park. Some said Marcus should be careful, while others were silent, unsure of what to believe. One day, during lunch, Marcus sat with Sarah and a few other friends. The cafeteria was noisy, but Marcus felt the weight of eyes watching him from across the room. A boy from another table whispered loud enough for Marcus to hear, "Maybe he did something wrong. Why else would those men chase him?" Marcus looked down at his food. He wished he could explain that he had done nothing wrong. That he had every right to ride his bike and play in the park. Sarah noticed Marcus's silence. She leaned closer and whispered, "Ignore them. You know who you are. Don't let their words hurt you." Marcus nodded, grateful for her kindness. That evening, back home, Linda made dinner as Marcus sat quietly at the table. His father, David, was reviewing some papers from work but kept looking over at Marcus. "Son," David said gently, "I know this is hard. But remember, you are stronger than these moments. We will get through this together." Marcus looked up and smiled a little. "I just want things to be normal again." David's eyes showed understanding. "Sometimes, normal takes time. But what matters is that we stand up for what is right." The next morning, Marcus rode his bike with more caution. He felt the eyes of the neighborhood on him again. When he passed the clubhouse, he saw the two fake security men standing near the entrance. They noticed Marcus and watched him closely. Marcus's heart raced. He didn't know what they wanted or if they would bother him again. He tried to stay calm and pedaled faster. The men said nothing, but their presence made Marcus feel uneasy. That afternoon, David decided it was time to take stronger action. He contacted the local police and reported the men as impersonators. The police promised to investigate and keep an eye on the neighborhood. Meanwhile, the Hoa held a community meeting. Many neighbors came, some to listen, some to speak. Linda spoke quietly but firmly. "We need to make sure everyone feels safe here. No one should live in fear." A few neighbors nodded, some looked uncomfortable. One man raised his hand. "I think we should be careful about making accusations. Maybe there is a misunderstanding." David responded calmly, "When people use fake uniforms to threaten others, it is not a misunderstanding. It is illegal, and it causes real harm." The meeting ended with the promise to improve neighborhood safety and communication. Marcus left the meeting with mixed feelings. He was glad his family was helping, but he still worried about the men and the looks from some neighbors. That night, Marcus sat by his bedroom window, looking at the quiet street below. He thought about the park, the fake officers, and his father's strength. He wished he could talk to other kids who understood what it felt like to be judged unfairly. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Sarah. "Hey, You're not alone. I'm here if you want to talk. Marcus smiled and typed back, thanks. I really need that. The next few days were hard but different. Marcus felt the support of his friends and family more strongly. He also noticed that some neighbors began to look at him differently with respect instead of suspicion. One afternoon, as Marcus rode his bike near the clubhouse, a real security officer approached him. "Hi Marcus," the officer said kindly. "I'm here to help keep the neighborhood safe. If you ever feel unsafe, please tell me." Marcus felt a warm feeling inside. For the first time in days, he felt truly safe. David came home that evening and saw the change in his son's eyes. "How are you feeling?" David asked. "Better," Marcus replied. "I know you and Mom are helping. And I'm glad Sarah is here, too." David smiled. "We will always be here for you. And together, we will make sure this neighborhood is a place where everyone belongs." Marcus felt hope growing inside him. The road ahead might still be hard, but he was not alone. His family, friends, and even some neighbors were standing with him. And that made all the difference. The days after the community meeting were tense. Marcus still felt the weight of those fake security men watching him from a distance. He tried to stay strong, but the fear never fully left him. One Saturday morning, Marcus decided to take his bike for a ride around the neighborhood. The sun was shining bright, and the air was fresh with the scent of blooming flowers. He hoped the fresh air would clear his mind. As Marcus rode near the clubhouse, he noticed something unusual. The two men in fake uniforms were there again, standing near the entrance like they owned the place. Their eyes followed Marcus closely. Marcus's heart began to race. He wanted to turn around and go home, but the feeling of being trapped held him in place. Just then, one of the men stepped forward and called out, "Hey! You again? What are you doing here?" Marcus swallowed hard. "I'm just riding my bike." The man's voice grew louder. "You don't belong here. You need to leave." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I live here. This is my neighborhood." The man sneered. "I don't care. You're not welcome." Before Marcus could say anything else, a tall man walked quickly toward the scene. His steps were strong and steady. It was David, Marcus's father. David's face was serious, but his voice was calm and clear. "Excuse me. What's going on here?" The two men looked surprised to see him. They glanced at each other nervously. David looked directly at the man who had spoken to Marcus. "Who are you, and why are you wearing those uniforms?" One of the men stammered, "We're with the HOA security." David shook his head slowly. "I have checked with the HOA office. They don't have any security officers like you." The men shifted uncomfortably. The tall man looked angry. "You don't need to get involved." David's voice was firm. "I'm involved because you are threatening my son. This ends now." Marcus watched his father with a mixture of relief and pride. David was calm but strong. His presence made the fake officers step back. David turned to Marcus. "Are you okay, son?" Marcus nodded, feeling safe for the first time in days. David reached into his pocket and pulled out his FBI badge. He showed it clearly to the men. "These men are not real officers," David said. "Impersonating law enforcement is a crime." The two men looked at each other again and then quickly turned away, leaving the neighborhood clubhouse. David turned back to Marcus and put his hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to face this alone. I'm here now." Marcus felt tears well up in his eyes. The fear and loneliness he had felt seemed to melt away in his father's strong presence. That evening, the family sat together in the living room. Linda made hot chocolate while David explained what had happened. "We need to report this to the police," David said. "These men will be stopped. No one should feel scared in their own home." Linda nodded. "Thank you for being here. Marcus needed you." Marcus smiled weakly. "I'm glad, too." The next day, David visited the police station with Marcus and Linda. He shared everything he knew about the fake security men and showed the pictures from the neighborhood cameras. The police took the information seriously and promised to investigate. David felt confident that justice would be served. Back at home, Marcus felt a new sense of hope. His father's arrival had changed everything. The feeling of being alone was gone. The neighborhood began to notice the change, too. The real HOA security officers increased their patrols. The neighbors spoke more openly, and some even apologized to Marcus and his family. One afternoon, while Marcus was riding his bike, Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly neighbor, smiled warmly at him. "Marcus, you're always welcome here. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Marcus smiled back, feeling a little lighter inside. As the days passed, Marcus's confidence grew. He played basketball in the park again, laughed with friends, and even spoke at a neighborhood meeting about the importance of fairness and respect. David watched his son with pride. He knew Marcus was growing stronger not just because of what he did but because of who he was. One night, as they sat on the porch together, Marcus looked up at his father. "Dad, thank you for coming. I didn't know how much I needed you until you were here." David smiled softly. "I'm always here for you, son. No matter what." Marcus felt a warmth in his heart. He knew that with his family by his side, he could face any challenge. And in that quiet neighborhood, with trees and flowers and kind neighbors, Marcus began to believe that true safety came from love, courage, and standing up for what was right. After David's strong presence stopped the fake security men, things in the neighborhood began to slowly change. But Marcus knew the problem was not over yet. Some people still whispered, and some faces remained cold when they saw him. The shadow of suspicion had not disappeared completely. One Saturday morning, Marcus woke up early and decided to go to the park. He wanted to prove to himself that he was not afraid. The sun was warm, and the air smelled like fresh grass and blooming flowers. When he arrived, he saw a group of kids playing basketball. Some of them nodded and smiled at him. Sarah was there too, waving happily. Marcus joined the game, laughing and passing the ball. It felt good to play freely again. Suddenly, the sound of voices interrupted the fun. A group of neighbors had gathered near the entrance to the park. Marcus recognized a few faces. Some had looked at him with doubt before. One of the neighbors, a tall man with a serious expression, stepped forward and spoke loudly. "We need to talk about what happened here. This neighborhood is for everyone, but we have rules. We must be sure everyone follows them." Marcus felt his heart beat faster. He wondered if this meeting was about him again. David, standing beside Marcus's mother Linda, stepped forward calmly. "We have already talked about the rules. What matters most is that we treat each other with respect and kindness," David said firmly. "Everyone belongs here." Linda nodded. "Marcus has done nothing wrong. He just wants to live and play like everyone else." The tall man looked at David but did not respond. Some neighbors whispered quietly. Sarah, standing close to Marcus, squeezed his hand. "You're doing great," she whispered. The meeting continued with other neighbors sharing their thoughts. Some apologized for their earlier doubts and promised to be more welcoming. One woman said, "I realize now I was wrong to judge without knowing. We should be supporting Marcus and every child here." Marcus felt a warm feeling spread inside him. Maybe, finally, things were beginning to change. After the meeting, many neighbors stayed to talk and get to know Marcus and his family better. People who had seemed distant before smiled and shook hands. David turned to Marcus. "See? When we stand together, things get better." Marcus smiled back. "I want to believe that." Days passed, and Marcus felt stronger. He continued going to the park, riding his bike, and spending time with friends. The fear was still there sometimes, but it was smaller now. One afternoon, David and Marcus were working in the garden. David was teaching Marcus how to plant flowers. "You know, Marcus," David said, "life isn't always fair. But that doesn't mean we stop trying. We have to keep standing strong, even when it's hard." Marcus nodded. "I want to be strong like you." David smiled. "You already are." Later that week, Marcus's school announced a special assembly about kindness and respect. Marcus was asked to speak about his experience. The day of the assembly, Marcus stood in front of the whole school. His heart was pounding, but he remembered what his father said: "Be strong and true." "I want to tell you about something that happened to me," Marcus began. "Sometimes, people judge others without knowing the truth. It hurts, but we can change that by being kind and standing up for each other." The students listened quietly. Some nodded, others smiled. Marcus finished, "We all belong here. No matter where we come from or what we look like, we deserve respect." After the speech, many students came up to Marcus to thank him and tell him they understood. Sarah hugged him tightly. "You were amazing." Marcus felt proud and hopeful. At home that evening, the family sat together and talked about the future. Linda said, "We have come a long way, but we still have work to do." David agreed. "Yes, but every step counts." "Marcus, you have shown courage, and I am proud of you." Marcus smiled, feeling the love and strength around him. The next day, Marcus's father received a call from the police. They had identified the two men who had been impersonating security officers. The men were arrested and would face legal consequences. David shared the news with Marcus and Linda. "Justice is coming. This neighborhood will be safer." Marcus felt relief. The fear that had hung over him like a cloud was lifting. Over the next few weeks, the HOA worked with the real security team to improve safety and build trust in the community. Neighborhood events were organized to bring people together. Marcus and Sarah helped by planning a picnic for the kids and families. The park was filled with laughter, games, and happy voices. As Marcus watched his friends play, he thought about how far he had come. From feeling alone and scared to standing strong with the people he loved. He knew the road ahead might still have challenges, but he also knew he was not alone. With his family, friends, and community standing with him, Marcus felt ready to face anything. And in that quiet neighborhood, under the tall trees and open skies, hope was growing stronger every day. The neighborhood was changing. The fear and tension that once filled the air were slowly fading away. Marcus could feel it. The smiles from neighbors were warmer, the greetings more sincere, and the parks filled with laughter again. One bright Sunday morning, Marcus woke up excited. Today was the day of the big neighborhood picnic, an event planned by the HOA to bring everyone together. Marcus and Sarah had worked hard to help organize it. They had made posters, invited families, and planned games. As Marcus ate breakfast with his parents, he felt a deep sense of hope. David looked at him and smiled. "Are you ready for today?" David asked. Marcus nodded. "I want today to be perfect." Linda added, "It already will be because everyone will be together." When they arrived at the park, the area was filled with colorful balloons, picnic tables, and happy families. Marcus saw many of his neighbors talking, laughing, and playing with their children. Some of the same neighbors who had once looked at him with doubt were now smiling and waving. Marcus felt a mix of happiness and pride. He walked over to Sarah, who was helping set up a game. "This feels different," Marcus said quietly. "Like the neighborhood is finally coming together." Sarah smiled. "It is. People are seeing the real us, not just what they heard." The picnic began with music and games. Children ran around, playing tag and jumping in the bouncy castle. Parents sat together, sharing food and stories. David and Linda watched Marcus play basketball with other kids. David turned to Linda and said, "This is what we hoped for, a place where everyone belongs." Linda nodded. "It took time, but we're getting there." Later in the afternoon, the HOA president took the stage to speak. She thanked everyone for coming and spoke about the importance of community and respect. "Today," she said, "we celebrate unity. This neighborhood is stronger because we face challenges together. We are committed to making this a safe and welcoming home for all." The crowd applauded, and Marcus felt his heart swell with hope. After the speech, Marcus was asked to say a few words. Standing in front of the neighbors, Marcus felt a little nervous, but he remembered his father's words, "Be strong and true." He took a deep breath and said, "I want to thank everyone for giving me a chance. It hasn't been easy, but today shows that we can come together and be kind to each other. We all deserve to feel safe and welcome." The neighbors clapped warmly. Some children cheered, and Marcus saw many smiling faces. Sarah came up beside him and whispered, "You were amazing." As the sun began to set, the picnic slowly came to an end. Families packed their things, and the park grew quiet again. Marcus sat on a bench, watching the sky turn orange and pink. David sat beside him. "Today was a new beginning," David said softly. Marcus smiled. "Yes, it was. I feel like I belong here now." David put his arm around Marcus. "You always did. Sometimes it takes others longer to see it." That night, back at home, Marcus felt tired but happy. He thought about the journey, the fear, the courage, the love, and the strength. He knew there would still be challenges ahead. But with his family, friends, and community beside him, Marcus believed that anything was possible. And as he closed his eyes to sleep, he dreamed of a future filled with hope, kindness, and belonging. The weeks after the neighborhood picnic felt like a fresh start for everyone. The fake security men were gone, the police were watching, and the community was slowly healing. Marcus woke up one morning feeling lighter than he had in months. He looked out the window and saw children playing in the park, neighbors greeting one another with smiles. For the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. At breakfast, Marcus shared his feelings with his parents. "I think things are finally getting better," he said, sipping his juice. David smiled warmly. "They are, son. Because people are choosing kindness over fear." Linda nodded. "And because you showed everyone the strength it takes to be yourself." School had become a better place, too. Marcus's classmates were kinder, and teachers were more aware of the importance of respect. Marcus had even made new friends who stood by him when things were tough. One afternoon, Marcus and Sarah sat together under the big oak tree at school. "Do you remember how scared you were before your dad came?" Sarah asked. Marcus nodded. "I did not want to go outside. I felt like no one wanted me there." Sarah smiled softly. "Look at you now. You're brave and strong." Marcus smiled back, feeling proud. At home, David and Linda talked quietly about the future. "We have done what we can here," David said. "But there's always more to do." Linda looked thoughtful. "Maybe we can help other neighborhoods, too. Share what we learned." David agreed. "That's a good idea. Change starts with one family, one community." One evening, David received a letter from the HOA. It thanked the family for their courage and leadership. It said the neighborhood was starting a new safety program, including meetings where everyone could speak openly and listen. David showed the letter to Marcus and Linda. "This is proof that our voices matter," David said. Marcus felt a spark of hope light up his heart. The following weekend, the family joined a new community meeting. Neighbors came together to talk honestly about their fears and hopes. Linda spoke first. "We all want a safe place for our children. But that can only happen if we trust and support one another." Marcus raised his hand and said, "I want everyone to know that kindness changes things. It makes us stronger." Many neighbors nodded in agreement. The meeting ended with plans to create a neighborhood watch group and organize more events to bring people together. As the months passed, the neighborhood grew closer. Marcus no longer felt like an outsider. He felt like he belonged. One day, as Marcus rode his bike past the clubhouse, he saw children of different backgrounds playing happily together. The fake security men were a distant memory. He stopped and smiled, feeling proud of how far they had come. David joined him, putting a hand on his son's shoulder. "You did this, Marcus," David said softly. "Your courage and kindness helped change hearts." Marcus looked up, eyes shining. "I couldn't have done it without you and Mom. And my friends." David smiled. "Family and friends are what make us strong." That night, as Marcus lay in bed, he thought about everything he had been through. The fear, the sadness, the hope, and now, the peace. He knew life might still bring challenges, but he felt ready. Ready to face the world with courage. Ready to stand up for what is right. And ready to help others feel safe and loved, just like he did. Marcus closed his eyes, dreaming of a future where everyone belongs, a future full of hope and healing.